Let's talk about some of the economic sectors so you have an idea of what's coming down the pipe in that front. Now, this is what we call the total private credit curve. This is all all private credit from all sources to all sources. Mortgages, credit cards, stocks, everything. The only thing that is not included is interbank lending. So if one bank is lending overnight window monies to another bank, that's not there, but everything else. Now, from the start of this chart in 2000 to the middle in 2008, that line going up, that is the subprime crisis in a single graphic. We doubled total private credit in the United States in 2 years. Excuse me, in 7 years. It was too much. It was too fast. As a result, we had a bubble. It burst. We had a recession. In the ensuing year and a half, 5% came off of headline GDP. Since then, private credit growth has rebounded, and we're back to something much more similar to the century average. This is our baseline. Now, the same data, but this time in relative terms instead of absolute. So a little bump in the middle, again, that's a doubling. Here's the Eurozone. In the time the United States doubled total credit, the Europeans tripled it. As a result, the European financial crisis hit harder, lasted longer. Several countries, such as Italy, still haven't recovered to where they were in 2007. And because of COVID and demographics, they probably never will. Here's Greece, sevenfold increase of credit in 7 years. And they're not done. Before COVID came, they were looking at least another 20% contraction on top of the 40% they had already suffered. Because of COVID, they will never recover. Here's Brazil. This is what a lost decade looks like, assuming you get the politics right. I don't know how many of you follow Brazilian politics. Well, actually, all of you should follow Brazilian politics. I mean, do you like Game of Thrones, Maury Povich, the impeachment hearings? Drama. You've got to get into Brazilian politics. Holy crap! They had a presidential election a couple of years ago, and the final two guys. One guy was campaigning from prison where he had been convicted of corruption, because in Brazil you can run for office from prison. You just can't, be president. And then the guy who won at his last big public rally said that the real problem with those Nazis is that they're just too soft on their domestic opponents. Wow. So this honestly is probably 2 lost decades. And for a country like Brazil that is so dependent on imported capital, coronavirus means that they're probably not going to return to 2019 ever either. Here we have India in purple and Turkey in black. 2 countries that are still early in the process. Now, both of these countries have already elected to office for multiple terms ethno-nationalist leaders who have no problem using state resources to spawn race riots on purpose in order to get a bump in the polls from their more reactionary supporters. I think Trump's bad. They have nothing on these two. Now, you'll notice that the Turkish line, the black one, actually dipped last year. Why? Well, that was the start of their financial correction. What also happened last year? The Turks invaded Syria and Iraq. It was a distraction play. And then here's the People's Republic of China. And let me bring that down for you. Yeah. China is now the most over-credited country in human history in both relative and absolute terms. It is Enron in nation-state form. Every system that we know, every company that has ever followed this model of force-fed capital has eventually collapsed. It's just a question how bad it will be. And China's now pushed this further and harder than anyone else. So it's going to be historically unique. Now, the point of all of this is that there's a large series of major financial crises that aren't just inevitable. Some of them might actually be imminent. That's a lot of money that's going to be looking for a safer location. What does foreign money want? Rule of law? Hard fiscal assets, implicit government guarantees, dividends. If you're looking to tap global credit for local development, there will never be a better time than right now. All right, that's finance. Let's look at energy. What we've got here is a price breakdown. So the broader the bar, the greater the volume of crude oil that comes out of the various country for export. The taller the bar, the greater the cost of producing the crude. Now, this is data from 8 years ago, 2012. And back then, US shale was the most expensive crude in the world to produce. And we only kicked out about 4 million barrels a day. That's about Iran at its peak. Now, for a country the size of the United States, that was useful, but it really didn't change the strategic math. That was then. Fast forward 8 years, and we've had breakthroughs in water management, data management, drilling technology. And the US is now one of the lowest cost producers in the world. And as of the first of the year, we were net oil exporters. Now, COVID is scrambling all the data, so we're going to have to take another look at this in a few months once things calm down. But the United States is here to stay as a major oil producer, as a net exporter, and it's not like these technologies are going to be uninvented. This is the new normal. The US really doesn't need the rest of the world to keep the lights on, but California does. California is the only state in the lower 48 that is not participating in the shale revolution in some way. It is now, of the states, the single largest oil importer. Two-thirds of the oil that California uses is imported. About half of that comes from the Persian Gulf, which means that California is now the most energy insecure state. And if there was any sort of shock that interrupted oil production globally, most of the United States would reorganize on the shale sector, which would keep energy prices low and calm, whereas California would be the only state that would still be forced to go out into the international market to source an ever more volatile and ever smaller energy supply. There is an energy crisis in the United States, but it's only for California. Now, the other side of the shale revolution isn't with oil, it's with natural gas. Now, what we've got here is something I'll call the checkbook map, because every dot is somewhere where someone can pay the power bill. The most important concentration of checkbooks in human history is this dot right here. This is Marshalltown, Iowa. This is where I'm from. And this is not a rave. Western North Dakota, I don't think so. Now, what's going on here is a problem disconnect with transport. Now, oil is a liquid. You can put it into a bucket, you can put it into a rail car, you can put it into a barge, you can put it into almost any sort of container. And if you can't move it that day, you'll just put it into a holding tank. It's not going to move anywhere on you. But you can't do that with natural gas. It's a gas, it disperses. So you have to have a pressurized collection, transport, and usage system that's leak-free, that can process the end product just as fast as it comes in, because you almost can't store it anywhere. Now, here in the United States, we've got the world's largest and most versatile natural gas distribution system, but we can barely keep up with what's coming up out of the shale oil fields as a byproduct. So until we can build out the infrastructure, we have to flare it. And you can see those flares from space. Now, what that means is that the United States is now the world's largest supplier of natural gas. And that has driven the price of the stuff well below what you would expect market norms to be. What can't you do with an endless supply of it? We've retooled our entire industrial sector, especially in petrochem, to use natural gas whenever possible. So we're not using as much oil. We're not even using as much electricity. And that's made the U.S. That has made the United States the lowest cost supplier for all of the chemical input